Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of Afasi Financial Group and RetireSharp.com. Today's topic, I want to go in depth regarding withdrawing from 401k after leaving your job. So what I want to do with this video is expose some of the common misconceptions when an individual leaves their previous employer. So whether that is, they might have hit retirement age and they're now trying to set up their monies or set up their existing 401k assets towards a type of withdrawal strategy, or they're trying to leverage this old 401k and they want to go and transfer that to a new employer 401k, or basically leverage this old 401k and place it into customized IRAs that correlate more towards either an accumulation goal, depending upon their current age, depending upon when they're looking to retire, or their wealth preservation and distribution goal. So please make sure when you're reviewing this video, you're taking down notes, and at any point in time you have further questions, you could simply give us a phone call at the 1-800 number, 1-800-566-1002. So regarding a situation when someone's working for their company and they decide to either switch over to a different employer or retire, or they might have some sort of qualification that allows them to withdraw this 401k and leverage it into different areas, there's going to be three main components on their choices, essentially three main choices that they could utilize. The first choice is they could just leave it alone, and they could leave it in that previous employer 401k, which is typically not recommended. I'm going to show you a whole slew of reasons why. They could go do a rollover into an IRA, meaning that the monies will stay on that tax-deferred basis, and with the IRA you could customize specific to your goals, which is typically recommended. Or you could go and transfer this 401k into your new employer 401k. So to help understand your situation better, financial planning, when we take a step back, when we look at the broad spectrum of financial planning, it can be broken down to two simple components. We have one side, which is an accumulation side, and then we have the other aspect, which is wealth preservation and distribution. So depending upon when you leave your job, depending upon your age, depending upon what your goal is, what your retirement goal is, what your distribution goal is, what your accumulation goal is, this is going to determine which stage of the game you're in. So like as an example, if somebody's in their 30s, and let's say they're 35 years old, and they say, okay, I want to retire when I'm 65, and they left their job and now they have that old 401k that's sitting there, well, it makes more sense to leverage an accumulation strategy rather than a wealth preservation distribution. Accumulation means that you're trying to create a path or create tweaks to your accounts to accumulate these monies as much as possible, so you have a nice fat bucket that's sitting there when it comes time to age 65. A wealth preservation distribution strategy would be more in line with somebody, let's say, that's 50, 55 years old. They left their employer. They have, a large lump sum in their 401k account. So now rather than try to take on risk and try to just maximize their accumulation, what they're going to try to do, because they know in this same situation, if they want to retire at age 65, is they have to be more mindful that, losses could occur, and be more mindful of fees and the hiccups in the market and the volatility in the market. So as I clear off the screen, I don't want this looking too sloppy, throughout the course of this video. We understand that one aspect is to obviously preserve, and then the other aspect is to make sure that you're distributing properly. So you're not going in and using all that risk, all that type of growth strategy, that accumulation strategy, when it actually comes time to try to trigger out withdrawals and take income, from these 401k accounts. So what exactly is a 401k, and then its most basic components, and then what happens when you leave your job, when you sever employment? And regarding a 401k, even if you understand, the whole concepts of it because you've been contributing to it for the last 20 years, just please, hear me out and just kind of, reiterate all this, all the verbiage on this. I want you to think of a 401k like a bucket. So when you're working for an employer, that employer is giving you an employee benefits package. They're saying, okay, this is your health insurance, this is your life insurance, these are your ancillary products, and oh, by the way, we have a retirement plan that you can contribute into. So let's say if somebody's making $100,000 as an example per year, the employer says, okay, well, if you place any amount of dollar into your 401k plan, we'll go and we'll match you up to 3% off of whatever your contribution is as per your salary. So if this individual's making 100 grand and they put in $3,000, well, then the employer is matching them $3,000, and therefore $6,000 went into this bucket, within that year. So this explains the contribution formula to a 401k. A 401k grows or gets depleted through contributions and rate of return. So contributions and rate of return equals whatever the account balance is at the end of the day, at the end of the year. If, let's say, in the same situation, the match is 3%, and that's the max that the company's going to give a match on, and this person decides to add $10,000 for that first year, well, the employer is not going to add $10,000 into that plan. They're going to only add what they said they were going to do, 3% contribution, a max up to 3% contribution. So this person put $10,000 into their 401k. The employer is only going to put in $3,000. If let's say the person puts in $1,000 and the employer is going to give a 3% match, the employer is only going to put in $1,000. So it's only going to be everything up to that match. So this is what could help maximize. These are the controllables that could help maximize the contribution side of a 401k plan. Now, what's typically overlooked is this rate of return side. And this is going to be the most important depending upon which stage you are in life. So I always say we want to get you from your point A to your point B, and then from your point B until date of death. So if you're working for a company, and then all of a sudden, you're in your 40s, and you say, okay, I have $200,000 that's sitting in my old 401k account, I'm just going to leave it in there. Now, that's a big problem, and this is actually a very common mistake that individuals do, is because of this rate of return side. This rate of return side and what controls this rate of return could essentially be a negative to growth potential, towards diversification, towards different things that could help give this a really good risk-adjusted return that you could leverage by taking the monies and rolling it over into an IRA. So what I mean by that is we understand the 401k, its contributions is obviously fueling one side, and the rate of return is fueling the other. Well, the rate of return, when you receive your employee benefits package and you say, okay, what we're going to do is give you different investments that you could choose that are linked, that are correlated to this 401k. So like if you're going and let's say you want to be known as an aggressive investor, well, then you might utilize your risk tolerance, you might utilize your allocation towards the stock market, towards like US stocks or international stocks, meaning non-US stocks. So what that means is, let's say if you were in this sort of blend when during the 1980s through 2000, this was very good. You were making money hand over fist because the markets were going up and up and up. So therefore, you're going for that year. If we just do a snapshot in a given year, you were adding in max contributions into this plan, so that was a positive. And then the rate of return side was also a positive because obviously the stock market went up during that time. Now, if we fast forward and we say, what about like a 2001 or a 2008? If somebody still had this type of allocation strategy and the markets went down, well, it didn't matter how much money was in your 401k account previously. If this rate of return side comes back negative, it's equivalent to someone taking a sword and slicing your bucket. So, like as an example, if in 2008, average portfolios lost right around 37%, some as high as 60, 70%. So that means if somebody had $1 million in their 401k plan and they made the mistake and they were too heavily allocated towards risk and towards the stock market being high risk, high return, and they took that 37% hiccup, that's $370,000 that just left their accounts by staying within that, within that type of portfolio, by staying within that type of aggressive strategy. So the quality of the funds, typically with 401k plans, is you have limited options and you have poor quality. So what I mean by that is when you're getting your employer benefits package, you might have anywhere from 10 to 20 different options to choose. Well, think of these as eggs in your basket. There's only so much juice that you could squeeze out of these options. If you're saying, okay, I want to be diversified, I want to make sure I'm diversified into different asset classes, like I want to have, a portion of US stocks and another portion of US bonds. Well, there might be some portfolios in there, or there might be very limited portfolios that give you this type of blended strategy. If we just break this down to a simplistic concept, if I said, okay, you have 20 options to choose, or you had 2,000 options to choose, which one is a better situation? Well, obviously, the more options is going to give you a better situation. You could have something that would give you cheaper costs, could give you higher quality, could ultimately allow you to have flexibility on which portions, which investments that you're placing your monies into, whether those are index funds, whether those are different mutual funds, lower cost than what your 401k might offer, or just, giving you a better risk-adjusted return than what your 401k might offer. So when we're looking at the first stage of financial planning, we're saying accumulation, and then somebody leaves their job. Well, what happens is they're eligible to take this 401k and roll it over into a customized IRA. So when there's many times where actually someone will make the mistake and they'll say, okay, well, I have 401k. I have, $200,000 that's sitting in my old 401k. I'm in my 40s. I just switched over jobs. I'm just going to take this money and throw it into my checking account. And that's a huge, huge mistake, because this individual could get dinged with 59.5 penalties, meaning a 10% penalty from the IRS, and they could get hit with full taxation when they do that. Reason being is because these monies, the 401k monies, are in something known as a qualified retirement plan. And when they go and they take their money out and they make a distribution, they make a full withdrawal into their checking account, that would be a non-qualified account. So when they're going from qualified to non-qualified, it's going to result in a taxable hit. So this is why somebody might want to take the 401k and say, okay, well, now that I've left my job, I'm eligible to roll over this 401k into an IRA. And the benefits of the IRA is just giving you, thousands of more options than what you would have with a typical 401k. So if we go back to that bucket concept, we understand a 401k, its contributions and rate of return equals what your account balance is. If you're adding contributions, that's a positive. Your rate of return comes back negative, well, then that could obviously be a detriment to your bucket. If you're adding contributions, that's a positive. Let's say your rate of return comes back positive, well, then that's a positive to your bucket. Now you have the power of compound interest that's working in your favor. The rate of return is controlled by those 10 to 20 different funding options, different investment options that you could choose. There's only so much juice that you could squeeze out of that. This is a qualified retirement account. So when you go and you sever employment, what you would do is do a rollover into an IRA. And if you're in your accumulation strategy, meaning that you're trying to maximize what your growth is on this, well, then this would be a customized IRA specific for growth. So your actual contribution would just be the rollover that comes over. So like as an example, somebody had $100,000 in their 401k and they rolled over those monies. Well, that would be $100,000 is ultimately acting like the contribution. And now this rate of return side, rather than your 10 to 20 different funds to choose, well, with an IRA, you could have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 different funds to choose and more. So this allows it this allows you to cherry pick, what your risk tolerance is, cherry pick what the funds are, get a cheaper quality, get a cheaper price at a higher quality, different things like that could give you better growth and better performance on this rate of return. So you have as much potential, or you could have as much opportunity to get positives on this rate of return side, rather than being, subject to just these limited options. So I hope that this comparison makes sense. Another common misconception that individuals do, or a common mistake that an individual will do, is take their old 401k, and when they start up at a new employer, they'll go and transfer that to their new employer 401k. Now, why is that a problem? As I clear out the screen, this is a problem because you're going to be in the same boat when it comes to that rate of return side. So like I mentioned in the beginning, when someone's setting up a 401k, they have contributions and rate of return. So if they're going and let's say their new employer says, okay, we're going to give you a 5% match on your money, the misconception is somebody thinks, oh, I'll just go and roll over my 100,000 into the new 401k account, and then, for some reason, this match is going to be higher by me doing the transfer from my old 401k to the new 401k. And that's not the case. Whether you're starting out with the new employer plan and your 401k balance is $0, you're making $100,000, and let's say you put 5,000 in there, and the company is matching 5,000 or 5% and 5%. That still means that a contribution of $10,000 is going into that plan. If you went and you did a rollover, and now you have $100,000 that's sitting in your new employer 401k, if you go and you put $5,000 into your plan, it's still going to be, in this example, it's still going to be a match of 5%. So it's only going to be $10,000 being placed into the plan. So why would you leave yourself exposed to that same limited funding options of the 10 to 20 different options by going and taking the money, taking the old 401k, and then just transferring into the new 401k? When you go and you sever employment, whether that's for retirement or, the example I'm using for this growth strategy or this accumulation stage is, typically when you're under the age of 50, is now you still have, the main premise or the main strategy would be to try to optimize this growth. So optimize your rate of return on your account. So this is why an IRA typically gives you a much better solution, or a much better advantage with those basket of 2,000 different options as opposed to the limited funding option. So why would you do that if you're already eligible because you left your job and now you're eligible to go into an IRA? Why would you not want to have that customization in there, and why would you leave yourself exposed to those limited funding options again? So that's kind of the main takeaway on the accumulation strategy, or the accumulation phase, if that pertains to you. So now I want to go in depth regarding the wealth preservation and distribution strategy. And I feel as if the more people that are watching this video is going to pertain towards this aspect, saying, hey, you know what, I've already accumulated my 401k plans. I'm kind of right at the end of the road, right before my retirement. So now maybe their point A is they're currently age 50. Their point B is they want to retire at age 65, and they want to know, okay, how can I be consistent with my monies from now, and how can I preserve my monies? How could I make sure that at this point B, I'm doing an effective distribution strategy rather than leaving my money exposed and being able to get hit with that large hiccup like I was showing in 2001, 2008. And the difference of those two is, rather than creating a customized IRA that's trying to maximize growth, what you're doing is you're creating a customized IRA that's trying to maximize safety and income. So now when somebody's at their later stage and they're saying, okay, I want to preserve my monies, I want to create a proper distribution strategy, I want to break this down into simplistic language and saying, well, there's 3 things that you need to accomplish in order to have pure retirement confidence. What those 3 things are is income, emergency, and inflation protection. When we go to the first stage, and I'm going to also show you an example that's going to highlight all 3 of these effectively, but when you go to the first stage of income, what exactly does this mean? Well, this means, let's say if somebody's 60 years old, or they're during their working years, and they want to retire in their age 65, age 67. Well, there's going to be specific expenses that they're paying for right now in their working years, and then there's going to be specific expenses during their retirement years. Well, when you hit that retirement stage, you're not bringing in that income anymore from your employer. Now you have to rely on everything that you've accumulated, everything you've gained from your accumulation strategy. If you have multiple buckets, multiple accounts that are essentially sitting there, how exactly can you pull off these monies properly, making sure that it's effective towards your specific goals? So if, let's say, this person in their 50s has expenses of $70,000, but then by the time that they're age 65, they're only going to have $60,000 of expenses. Well, what exactly are the tweaks that have to be made to make sure that if they're no longer working, they can no longer put in the hours at work? Now they have to try to live off of their dollars and not outlive their monies, making sure it's going to last them for the rest of their life. How exactly can we do this effectively? So there's different income sources that an individual might receive already from their employer. They might receive something known as a pension plan, which means that you were working for an employer for X amount of years, and they were basically creating a defined benefit for you, meaning when you hit that last year of service, they're going to provide you some sort of income stream. Now, pensions are, unfortunately rare in today's times, and so this is where a lot of individuals have to rely more on Social Security income. So Social Security income would be an income source directly from the government that you've already placed monies into, and this is something that's going to give you a monthly benefit. So if somebody is, let's say, in this example, somebody has $60,000 of expenses, but at age 65, it's going to be $60,000 of expenses at age 65, and at that time they trigger Social Security income, and that Social Security income is only $40,000. Well, then this means that there's a gap there of $20,000. So now there has to be a proper strategy to utilize whether that's their old 401k plan or their IRA accounts, and make sure that that is able to produce at least $20,000 each and every year until the date of death. Right after the step 1 is accomplished, then we move on to step 2. Step 2 shows us that we want to at least make sure that we have some sort of emergency fund available in case this person comes into a medical ailment, they need to get a new car, whatever that is, something that allows them to pull from easy accessible monies, so that they're not just saying, okay, well, I have expenses of $5,000 per month, but I'm going to be receiving $10,000 per month, so I'm just going to go through this $10,000 each and every month like it's nothing and have no savings. We want to make sure that there is some sort of savings, there's some sort of emergency fund that's set aside that this individual could dip into at any given day's notice. So what I mean by that is maybe in that situation where somebody has $60,000 of expenses, rule of thumb is that somebody should at least have 6 to 12 months of their annual 6 to 12 months of expenses set aside into some sort of liquid account, whether that be a savings account, whether that be a money market account that was in their that was set aside from their 401k into an IRA rollover, whatever that case might be, that they could say, okay, at any given moment's notice, I could pull out 60,000 or I could pull out 10,000, 20,000, at any point in time, to make sure that you have the peace of mind that you have more than enough income that's coming. Your income is greater than your expenses. You have more than enough money that you could rely on as emergency, so you don't have to dip into this IRA account that was set up for income. And then the third aspect is inflation protection, or essentially growth. And this third aspect is the fun part. This is where, if you've already accomplished step 1 and step 2, everything left over, this is now the growth stage. This is where you could have some fun with your, with your different accounts and the different investments involved. And what I mean about that step 3 is some sort of inflationary protection. So if the, let's say the individual has at age 65, has $60,000 of expenses, well, maybe at age 67, that might be $62,000 of expenses. Maybe at age 70, that might be $65,000 of expenses. So what's happening is the longer and longer the individual's living, the further they're falling victim to inflationary risk, meaning the cost of goods and services that keep increasing year by year by year. So rule of thumb is that inflation increases on average about 2 to 4% in a given year. So you have to make sure that any of your money's left over. If you're using the smallest amount of dollars from your 401k and only as much as necessary to accomplish your income goal, to accomplish your emergency fund goal, and all these leftover monies, we want to make sure that those dollars are growing at an effective rate much higher than that 2 to 4%, so that each year that these are growing, if you ever need to pull from, the interest that you've gained to at least suffice what that inflationary need is or combat that inflationary need, you could do that properly. So I hope that all of that makes sense. The ultimate goal with a withdrawal strategy from a 401k is making sure that you're not falling victim to the masses, you're not falling victim to the common mistakes. You're not saying, okay, I'm just going to go and leave my money in my 401k and it's going to be super aggressive and I'm just going to go and try to pull out monies, each and every year and everything should just work itself out. Well, individuals have done that. They've really been impacted since 2001 by just, basically shooting from the hip, not even aiming at what they're looking at. And this is what has resulted in thousands and millions of retirees not being able to properly retire and outliving their retirement savings. They might have started retiring at age 65 and then they've already depleted all their retirement accounts by the time they're age 75, by the time they're age 80. So, what happens at this point in time? Were they going to go back to work at age 75, age 80? No. They have to rely on Social Security income. They have to completely reduce their lifestyle, and it's a huge, huge mess. So I'm hoping that this video helps you understand that there's certain lanes that you could go and make sure that you're segmenting your goals towards specific lanes and maximizing, those specific accounts that will, give you the most efficiency, towards those lanes. So what I mean by that, I want to go through an example showing the 3 things scenario, showing with like a typical individual of, let's say, they call into the office or, an individual situation that we might deal with on a daily basis. So as an example, let's say that we have an individual that's age 60. They have an old 401k of $500,000. This person wants to retire at age 65. And for these next 5 years, they're going to be making $10,000 contributions into their new employer 401k. So when we look at this sort of situation, we want to ask first off, what is their expenses right now and what is going to be their expenses at age 65? So when we're looking at the three things scenario, the first step is probably the most important step is income. We want to make sure that their income at retirement when they stop working is going to be greater than their expenses. So their point A is today their point A is age 60, their point B is age 65, and then we want to make sure that their assets could last them, or their income streams could last them for the rest of their life. So after doing all this analysis, we understand that this person has $60,000 of expenses at age 65, and then by the time that they hit age 65, their only guaranteed income source is Social Security income. And that Social Security income is going to produce them $40,000. So what this tells us is $60,000 is the need, $40,000 is what they're going to be receiving. They're no longer going to be working after the age of 65, so now they have to leverage this old account a proper way. So if we're looking at income, we want to leverage an income-related IRA. So this is where someone could leverage like an annuity as an example. It would be a 5-year deferred annuity. Typically, I like to leverage things with income riders, so like fixed index annuities with income riders known as hybrid annuities. And maybe out of this $500,000, in order to accomplish that $20,000 gap, it's going to cost this individual $200,000 with the optimized IRA annuity that could get triggered in exactly 5 years. So out of this $500,000, they would have only used $200,000 to do a rollover into a customized IRA annuity, and this will at least accomplish step one. By looking at this, what happened? Well, $500,000, $200,000 accomplished their goals. We're not putting $1 less, $1 more than what that need is. And now this person has $300,000 left over to accomplish step one and step two. Step two is emergency funds. Maybe out of this, $300,000 left over, maybe because there's $60,000 of annual expenses. This person wants to put in $50,000 into something that's not exposed to the market, something that they could touch at any time. So maybe $50,000 is going to go into an IRA money market account. So I want to clear up the screen so it wasn't looking as sloppy. Just kind of reiterate some of that information. So we understand step one is accomplished. That was $200,000 in IRA with a max income strategy. This is going to last them. It doesn't matter if this person lives until age 100, 120, whatever that is. This person will be receiving Social Security income and the IRA annuity income. Step two, $50,000 went to an IRA number two, which was an IRA money market account. So this provided them liquid access to those monies with this emergency. And then this says that out of the $500,000, we have $250,000 left over towards that growth / inflationary need. So now these are the fund monies. There's a whole slew of different ways you could do this. You could set up safe growth strategies. So just something that's going to beat out the pace of inflation. So anything that's going to beat out the pace of 2 to 4% inflation in a given year. You got to have a portion of monies into, whatever, fixed accounts like bank CDs, treasury bonds, fixed annuities. You could leverage, market link CDs. You could leverage index annuities. You could leverage, different investments, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, whatever that case might be, but just something that this individual knows that they really don't have to touch these dollars, but if they ever want to let's say, they want to splurge a little bit here or there, that's what this type of account is for. Not only did we go and we're splicing up this remaining 250,000, maybe 100,000 is going to be in a safe accumulation goal. Maybe $100,000 could be an aggressive accumulation goal, like a growth-related goal. And then another $50,000 could be in like a blended accumulation goal. So that shows those $250,000. This individual is still going to be putting in $10,000 per year for the next 5 years because he's only age 60. He's still contributing monies into a 401k account to his new employer. and then until age 65. Well, once age 65 happens, because we've already accomplished step one, step two, all these other monies can now be rolled over or left at the new 401k account, and just have all these different buckets, as many IRAs, as many 401ks as possible, that will give this person pure retirement confidence, make sure that they're able to constantly live throughout their retirement years and never worry that their expenses are going to supersede, what their income sources are. And it's basically that trickle-down effect. If we make sure that this is accomplished properly and efficiently, then step two could be accomplished properly and efficiently. Then step three could be accomplished properly and efficiently. So that's where, these three things, as long as these three things are covered, you could have that pure confidence, that and pure prosperity throughout your retirement. Now, common mistakes that are made with this three-thing scenario is you would have greedy advisors, and they're going to tell somebody a million reasons why they want to place all that old 401k into an IRA annuity. So as the example, if this person has $60,000 of expenses, they already have $40,000 of Social Security income that's coming to them, their need is only $20,000. There's no reason for them to take $500,000 and put it into an annuity. Why? So that maybe they could be receiving $100,000 in retirement and their expenses are only $60,000. Annuities could be very good. They could be very good IRA related vehicles for that income plan, but they also have restrictions on liquidity. They have restrictions on growth, depending upon what sort of contract that you're in. They might have a high income rider fee, whatever that case might be. In order to maximize these three things effectively, it's making sure that you're using the smallest amount of dollars and only as much as necessary for step one. Same thing for step two. Same thing for step three. Any monies left over, those are your discretionary monies, those are your fund monies, and ultimately this is how you accomplish your goals properly. So to reiterate everything, withdrawing from your 401k after leaving your job, if you're in your accumulation phase, well, it makes sense to utilize the old 401k, set up a customized IRA for growth. You could obviously leave it out of your old employer plan, which could be a detriment. You could transfer that into your new employer plan, which could be a detriment. So, the whole premise behind the accumulation strategy is saying, okay, would you rather leave it in your old 401k that might have 20 different options to choose, funding options to choose, or when you go and roll it over into an IRA for an optimized growth strategy that might have 2,000 different options to choose. So that's the first step. When it actually starts going and this individual starts nearing retirement, well, now rather than an accumulation strategy that says, even if there were an accumulation strategy with an IRA, well, how exactly can we, pump the brakes a little bit? How exactly can we preserve dollars, make sure that you have some sort of wealth preservation, and most importantly, a distribution strategy, using the smallest amount of your larger fund. So in the example I was using, 500,000, how can we use the smallest amount of dollars effectively? So rather than just say, okay, take one account and just roll it over into one IRA account, what you're doing is you could take the one account, you could roll it over into a customized income IRA, a customized emergency IRA, a customized growth IRA, a blended IRA. You still have the monies from your new 401k plan that you can make contributions to. So it's just giving you as many options as possible rather than just leaving everything, all your eggs in one basket, leaving everything to chance and being hurt, being basically outlive. What is the downside to everything? If you mess this up, if you do not properly retire, or if you do not properly plan and create your strategy now, or when you do leave, that could result in retirement disaster. That could result in you outliving your retirement savings. So that is not what we want to see. We want to make sure that you're educated properly. We want to make sure that you're able to see the 30,000 foot view to say, okay, what's my point A? What's my point B? How exactly do I get from point A to point B successfully, from point B until date of death successfully? So I hope that everything made sense. Please let us know if you have any further questions. Simply call our 1-800 number. It's 1-800-566-1002. And you could just say, hey, I was looking at a video online, withdrawing from 401k after leaving job. I had further questions. I want to speak over to a specialist. So you give us a call. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, mornings, nights, holidays, whatever that case might be. We'll make sure someone pick up the phone and then basically patch you over to that correct specialist. Now, when a more efficient option would be to visit our website. I'm going to have the little link in the description of this video. If you go to retiresharp.com or afossefinancial.com, and let me pull it up. This is a website. If you put in retiresharp.com or afossefinancial.com, it's going to bring you both to the same place. And you're going to see a little icon that's going to pop up on the bottom side of the screen, the bottom right-hand side of the screen. It's going to say book your strategy session. So you can schedule an appointment, what's most convenient for you, put your little notations in there so that, that individual would know, that advisor will know exactly, your situation beforehand and could at least get you some good information prior. At the end of the day, education is key with retirement planning, with growth planning, whatever that case might be, and it's just, it's trying to take what seems like a complicated situation and break it down to very simplistic intervals. Don't overcomplicate these things. Understand that there are many options, but you just want to make sure that you're choosing the correct path, that you're basically crawling before you walk, walking before you run with any sort of situation. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel Retire Sharp so you could have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.